Celtic are safely through to the next phase of the Scottish Cup. And on paper, that is all that really matters. A 2-goal victory, a clean sheet, no major injuries, and a place booked in the last 16. But anyone who sat through the full 90 minutes knows this was not a night that will live long in the memory, nor one that sparks endless replays or heated debates about brilliance. It was functional, it was controlled, and at times it was uncomfortable in a very familiar way that Celtic supporters have seen before, when the expectation is absolute dominance and the reality turns into a slow grind. From the opening whistle, Celtic had the ball, the territory, and the responsibility. The opposition were camped deep almost immediately, happy to defend their box, break up rhythm, and force Celtic to find solutions in tight spaces. Possession was never an issue. Control was never really in doubt. What was missing and what made the game feel heavier than it needed to be was that sharpness in the final third that turns pressure into goals quickly and settles everyone down. Instead, it became one of those evenings where the ball moves side to side, crosses are half cleared, second balls drop awkwardly, and frustration quietly builds with every blocked shot. The scoreline eventually reflected Celtic's superiority, but the path to it was not smooth. Chances came, but not in waves. Moments opened up, but they were not taken with the conviction you would expect against this level of opposition. There was a sense that Celtic were always one moment away from breaking it open, yet never quite clicking into that higher gear. It is the kind of performance that, if you replay it in your head an hour later, already starts to fade, because there is very little within it that demands to be remembered. One of the more interesting aspects of the night was the number of changes to the starting lineup. With so many fresh faces given an opportunity, this felt like a chance for fringe players to make a real case for themselves. These are the games where confidence can grow, where someone steps forward and forces the conversation to change. Instead, the overall impression was that several players looked exactly like what they are right now, squad options rather than genuine challengers. Not because of a lack of effort, but because at this level, sharpness, composure, and belief matter just as much as talent. There were moments early on where Celtic looked as if they might run away with it. A couple of early openings suggested the visitors could be stretched if the tempo stayed high. But as one or two chances went begging, the rhythm dipped. Confidence is a fragile thing, especially for players who do not play every week, and you could see it drain away as simple decisions became hesitant ones. A missed chance early in a match like this can change the entire tone, and that seemed to be the case here. Credit has to be given to the opposition because they did not fold, they stayed organized, kept their shape, and worked tirelessly. Without the ball, there was no panic, no wild pressing, just discipline and commitment. Even as the game wore on, they did not show the physical drop-off many expected. From the first minute to deep into the second half, they were still tracking runners, closing spaces, and making Celtic earn that every inch. That kind of resistance does not win matches, but it does make nights uncomfortable for favourites who are expected to stroll through. The pitch conditions and the unfamiliar combinations on the park played their part as well. When players are not used to each other's movement, passes arrive half a second late or early, runs are not trusted, and the entire flow suffers. That was evident in the attacking areas, where promising positions often fizzled out before turning into genuine chances. There was plenty of neat build-up until the edge of the box, and then a lack of decisiveness once it mattered most. Still, goals did come, and when they did, They were taken with a level of quality that reminded everyone of the difference between the sides. The opener finally released some of the tension, and the second goal later on confirmed what had always felt inevitable. At that point, the outcome was sealed, and the final stages drifted by without much drama. Celtic never looked like conceding, and the opposition, to their credit, continued to compete without abandoning their structure. One of the quieter positives from the night was simply getting minutes into legs. In a season where the squad depth has been questioned, getting through a cup tie without injuries is not something to dismiss. These matches carry risks, especially when the game becomes physical and scrappy, but Celtic navigated that side of it without issue. That alone makes the result valuable, even if the performance did not excite. There were also individual moments that will be quietly encouraging. A forward finding the net after a dry spell, even in a game like this, can make a difference mentally. A defender stepping into midfield and dictating play from deep showed composure and leadership. Small things, perhaps, but in a long season, those moments add up. At the same time, there were reminders of why certain players remain on the fringes, as nerves and inconsistency crept into their performances under pressure. As the match wore on, there was a slight sense of unease about key players staying on the pitch longer than expected in a tie that was largely under control. Seeing influential figures logging heavy minutes naturally raises questions. It is not about doubting decisions, but about recognizing how thin the margins can be when the schedule is relentless and the stakes are high in the coming weeks. By the final whistle, the overwhelming feeling was relief rather than joy. Relief that the job was done, relief that there were no shocks, and relief that attention could now turn to much bigger challenges ahead. This was a night that will not define the season, but it does fit neatly into a pattern of performances where control does not always translate into fluency and dominance does not always feel comfortable. There is always a temptation to overanalyze games like this, especially when expectations are sky high. Context matters. Early rounds of the Scottish Cup, away from home, against highly motivated opponents with a heavily rotated side, are rarely straightforward. History is full of examples where progress mattered far more than performance. Celtic have been here before and they will be here again. What this match really does is set the stage for what comes next. The margin for error tightens, the opponents improve, and performances like this will not be enough when the pressure rises. The hope is that lessons are taken quietly, confidence is built where possible, and the sharper edge returns when it is truly required. As attention shifted away from the match itself, the conversation naturally moved toward what this result means in the broader context of the season. Cup progress is important, but it rarely exists in isolation, especially when the calendar is about to tighten and the pressure points begin to stack up. This win did not answer many questions, but it did highlight the reality Celtic are currently living with, where every performance is judged not only on the result, but on what it suggests about the weeks ahead. One of the lingering talking points was the reliance on certain core players, even in fixtures where rotation was clearly the intention. Seeing influential figures stay on the pitch deep into the match sparked quiet concern among supporters who know how quickly fortunes can change with one injury. When the squad feels thin, every extra minute carries weight, and even routine cup ties start to feel like calculated risks rather than comfortable exercises. The performances of those given a chance to impress also fed into a wider debate that has been bubbling all season. There is a clear line between the trusted starters and those hovering just outside the main picture. Nights like this, are supposed to blur that line to create competition and genuine selection headaches. Instead, the gap often looked obvious. That does not mean the players lacked effort or desire, but at this level, confidence and sharpness cannot be faked, and the absence of both was noticeable in key moments. Confidence, in particular, felt like a recurring theme throughout the night. One missed opportunity early on seemed to echo through the rest of the performance, not just for the individual involved, but for the team as a whole. You could see hesitation creep in, the extra touch taken, the safer pass chosen instead of the riskier one. When a team is flying, those decisions are instinctive. When belief is fragile, everything feels heavier. Despite that, Celtic never lost their shape or discipline. There was no sense of panic, no chaotic chasing of the game. The structure remained intact, the defensive work was solid, and the goalkeeper was rarely troubled. That level of control is often taken for granted, but it is also the foundation that prevents nights like this from turning into disasters. Even when creativity dried up, the basics were still there. The opposition continued to earn respect long after the final whistle. Their organization, fitness, and commitment made the contest far more competitive than many expected. They did not simply sit back and hope for the best. They pressed at selective moments, forced mistakes, and made Celtic work for every opening. Performances like that are exactly why these cup ties are so tricky, because pride and momentum mean just as much as technical quality on these occasions. From a tactical perspective, there were interesting ideas on show, even if they did not fully come off. Certain players were given freer roles, drifting between positions in search of space. At times, it looked promising, especially early on when movement caused brief moments of confusion, but as the game settled, those spaces disappeared, and without the confidence to take chances, the experiment lost its edge. It was a reminder that tactical tweaks only shine when players feel bold enough to express themselves within them. The goals themselves told a familiar story. When the breakthrough finally came, it was about quality rather than chaos. A moment of composure, a clean strike, and suddenly the tension eased. The second goal followed a similar pattern, reinforcing the sense that Celtic always had enough to get the job done, even if the route there was longer than anyone wanted. Once that cushion was in place, the game slowed and the urgency faded on both sides. As the dust settled, thoughts inevitably turned toward what lies ahead. The next fixtures carry far more weight, both domestically and beyond. Matches where control alone will not be enough, where chances must be taken, and where mistakes will be punished more ruthlessly. Performances like this are tolerated in early cup rounds, but they become dangerous habits if they carry over into bigger nights. There is also the ongoing discussion about reinforcements and whether help is coming in time. Games like this underline the need for depth, not just in numbers, but in genuine quality that can change a match. When rotation leads to a visible drop in tempo and belief, it sends a clear message about where strengthening is required. The challenge is addressing that without disrupting the balance or placing unfair expectations on new arrivals. Mentally, this was a test as much as a physical one. The players had to stay patient, resist frustration, and trust that their dominance would eventually tell. They passed that test, even if not with flying colors. The danger is complacency, believing that patience alone will always be enough. In tighter games, against sharper opponents, patience must be paired with precision. The atmosphere around the club reflects that tension. Supporters are caught between satisfaction at simply progressing and concern about the underlying patterns that keep reappearing. It is possible to hold both views at once, to acknowledge the achievement while still demanding improvement. That balance defines this stage of the season where every match feels like a referendum on direction and ambition. In the end, this was a night that served its purpose without offering reassurance. Celtic are through, the cup journey continues, and the focus shifts forward. What remains is a sense that the real tests are still to come, and that performances like this, while acceptable here, will need to evolve quickly when the spotlight grows brighter. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. There's a buzz rolling round the east end of Glasgow that feels different. The kind of hum that starts in the pubs, spills onto the terraces, and refuses to quieten. The name on every lip is Billy Gilmour, and the rumour doing the rounds is pure green-tinted fantasy. The midfielder slipping on the Celtic jersey, taking the number 8, and giving the crowd a new heartbeat in the middle of the park. Nobody at the club is saying a word, but silence has never stopped speculation in this city. Sources close to the Fit Bay chatter claim the idea of Gilmour in hoops is no longer just a daft dream. The story goes that the number 8, heavy with history and expectation, would be waiting for him. It's the kind of detail that sets supporters' imaginations on fire, and already the comparisons are flying. He's the new Modrić, folk are saying, half in jest, half in genuine belief. It's a bold shout, but then again, Celtic Park has always thrived on boldness. Gilmour's profile seems to fit the romance. A Scottish lad with a sharp football brain, tidy feet, and a habit of making the game look slower than it really is. The thought of him dictating play in green and white, spraying passes and knitting attacks together, has fans talking themselves into something special. Old heads recall past number 8s who carried the side through tight spells, and they wonder if this could be the next chapter. Of course, for now, it's all smoke without fire. There are contracts, money, and plenty of hurdles that could kill the tail stone dead. But rumours don't need proof to gather pace, only hope. And hope is in rich supply among the Celtic support just now. If this one ever turns real, it could be more than a signing. It could be a statement. Until then, the dream lives on, whispered with a grin and a touch of belief that maybe, just maybe, Parkhead is about to welcome its own midfield maestro. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.